We have someone with us today who comes with over 16 years of experience in strategy, analytics, channel development, planning and processes in both life and general insurance. He is an expert in conceptualizing and driving tactical initiatives for sales and distribution channels. Strong skill sets in analytics and development of solutions based on the entire spectrum of business parameters. Please welcome Mr. Sachin Shanbag, Head of Business Intelligence Unit at TATA AIG General Insurance Company. From your post-graduation days in 2000 to where you are today, how has the journey been for you so far?
Well, I started out small. My first job was the result of a lot of effort on my part after my MBA. Life lands you in positions or places where you might not have really, envisaged in advance, but you get there somehow. So I started out in a company called Captech Online, which was a platform for dealing in secondary market debt instruments.
Right.
I joined there as a pre-sales in charge and operations as well, because it was a small team, being a .com and
it was a startup company.
It was a startup company by the TATA Group, and a lot of things for everybody to do. So there was a lot of room for developing your own skill sets, getting your hands dirty, feet dirty, and getting on the thick of things. So those 2.5 years really passed by in a flash. We were a little ahead of our times in terms of the technology we were using and the concept of dealing online, which currently is prevalent across the globe anywhere.
True.
So things didn't pan out the way the venture capitalists had actually thought out.
Right.
And over time, things started petering down in terms of clients not wanting to pay for the services.
Okay.
So ultimately, it led me to move on, and that's when I really got into insurance. And I joined my first job in the insurance field as a business analyst.
Right.
So that was at TATA AIG. And while they called me a business analyst, actually I didn't have a clue of what I was doing, because there are some people who actually plan their way and move accordingly.
Right.
But for me, it was not like that. My first moves were not so well thought of, and it was the need of the hour.
Correct.
But since that time, I have grown in that field. I have been in insurance all throughout after that. So leaving aside the first 2.5 years, the remaining 13.5 years has all been in insurance, both life and non-life. It has been an amazing journey, enriching in the kind of learning that it afforded me. Being in an industry which when I joined was just the sunrise industry in India.
True.
And I've come up the curve in terms of what I was doing when I started on TATA AIG. Then I moved on to some other companies in the life space, and then I'm now back in TATA AIG.
So insurance kind of pulled you back into this industry. Great. So it's been a good amount of time that you've been in the insurance sector. Now, by many people, insurance companies are not, considered as a flashy job, but the reality is very different. What would you say? I mean, typically when you say insurance, people say, insurance policies or something like that. The interpretation is very different.
See, what's happened is we've all grown up in an era where insurance policies were sold to our parents by a friend or the friendly neighborhood agent.
Absolutely.
So we have seen these uncle kind of people, come to our house with with a thick bag, lots of forms, and he gets your signature, goes, you never see him again maybe, and that's about it. You end up paying your premiums on a timely basis, and that's about it.
Right.
Things have really changed from that time. Post liberalization, the insurance industry has actually gone the banking way. Now, banking, you might agree, is a flashy job for most people. Banking, investments, and so on and so forth. Post-liberalization, most of the private companies who have set up have either got a good set of people from the domain, which is from the nationalized companies, and a larger set in the sales and distribution team, which come from either banking or NBFCs.
Right.
So because of that, the culture of insurance companies too has moved towards what banking and financial services companies are like.
Right.
There are a lot of open culture. You'll find flatter hierarchies. You'll find very modern distribution channels coming into play, and obviously lucrative pay packages as well.
True.
So while I would not use the word flashy, but definitely I would use the word classy. So industry has moved towards something you could call as classy rather than flashy.
Right.
Anyway, flashy is not something I myself identify with. I would rather be called classy as compared to flashy. Well, you're right. Business intelligence by itself is an interesting and exciting field to be in. But it comes down to hard numbers, hard number crunching. For someone who just starting out in the field, unless he's got some expertise or skill sets in advanced analytics tools, he will have to start off with basic number crunching itself, and get some lateral skills and knowledge on the role, on the job. Because ultimately what you're doing is you're providing support to the sales teams and the distribution teams out there who are trying month on month, day on day, trying to achieve their numbers in a really difficult market. So what you're basically giving them is snippets of information, or I'll call them nuggets of information, which will go a long way into helping them get their business in place, get healthy business into the company. By healthy, I mean something that is not loss making for the company, and ultimately achieve their yearly objectives in terms of either sales numbers or profitability or whatever the case may be. So business intelligence, in a very, very simple manner, if I were to put it, it is just you being out there in the field, able to support your sales teams with the best possible data. The buzzword here is data, and it's a very it's a small word. It means a lot of things. So business intelligence goes to just show how deep that word can be.
Right. So you really take on an act of enabling your teams of doing better.
Perfectly, I would put it that way, enabling them in a very regular fashion as well, and also to help them with whatever might come up in terms of ad hoc or tactical initiatives. Because that's when some sales head might just come back and say, boss, I have this gut feel that this particular segment, while we haven't really gone there before, but I think it will be really good for us to be in there. So I either help him with the data which says, yes, you're right, boss, the market says that. So anybody who's been in this field before or the channel before has done well. Or no, sorry, you might be right in some other market, but at least for our own market, this won't work.
This won't work. So you're also validating.
Yes.
So that becomes a very crucial aspect for the entire scheme of the business.
That's right. That's right.
Great.
That's right. Honestly, again, I go back to the point where I said that I don't really plan my way ahead. So I was doing my BSc in statistics, and I was also doing my computer applications course by the side, and my ultimate aim was to become a programmer. So while I wasn't an engineer, that's what I was trying to make up for by going through this computer programming course. So once I was in my final year, when I was asked by people as to what is it that you have in store, obviously parents do ask you, right, at some point in time, what do you have in store for the next few years, what do you want to do? So I just went with what the crowd was doing and said, I think I should do an MBA. So my father asked me, MBA? Why MBA? Who told you anything about MBA? Because in that time MBA was in a very nascent stage. Only a niche crowd was doing MBA. There were not so many colleges offering MBA as they are today. So one of my friends said, a very close friend said, I am doing an MBA. He had obviously well thought out what he wanted to do. I said, okay, I'll also come along and give the exam. And that's how I actually got into it. But once I got into the MBA, that's when I actually realized that an MBA is a whole different world as compared to what a graduate college would be like. It was very important for the person getting in to get out into the market and prove himself, because even having an MBA does not necessarily make you a good manager.
Absolutely.
So people who get into MBA with the attitude that, boss, this is what will give me the the advantage of being ahead of many others in the market, has to have his act thought of again, because that's not really true. So during my time, MBA was something which a privileged few used to do. But over time, we have seen a lot of colleges mushrooming. You have seen many other students or rather after graduation immediately going for an MBA. So it's now MBA has become the equivalent of what a graduate degree would have been in my time. So that's the shift that I see. For example, now an MBA is a must. If you're not doing any post-graduation, you should have an MBA.
You should have an MBA.
In fact, many of the management colleges that I visited as being a part of a panel which interviews candidates for getting into the MBA course, most of them do not have a clear answer as to why they want to do an MBA. They are doing it mainly because they know that they need something like a post-graduation or an MBA to do well in the market.
So would it be right to say that MBA qualification has become more of a filtering criteria for you to get into?
Yes, you expect that people who have an MBA degree are a shade or a notch above the rest of the market. So automatically your funnel narrows down, so you can direct or focus your efforts more on deriving the right kind of skill set rather than basic qualification.
Absolutely. So that brings me to the next question. Is when you recruit from an MBA college, what are some of the things that you look at in a candidate while hiring them?
Well, obviously that depends from role to role.
Right.
But if I were to generalize and say what I look for in every MBA graduate, first one to me would be he or she should be with their feet firmly on the ground,
Right.
head on the shoulder rather than the air. Because what an MBA sometimes does to you is that, well, if you have done it from a reputed college, you think you already are made. Things are laid out for you, and you just have to walk the path. That is not necessarily the case. So I need someone who's practical, who's logical, somebody who actually knows where they want to be, which is obviously where I didn't come from. I didn't know where I wanted to be. So I don't want to see that mistake being done by somebody whom I recruit. Well, the daily classes, projects and syllabus will automatically take care of themselves, because once you get into an MBA college, what happens is you hurtle through it. Things get taken care of at that end at least. What the student should focus more on is to use the first year to think about where that student wants to be in the second year. That's one. So they can basically select their specialization in the second year. Once you have selected a specialization, you should also be able to narrow down on the industry that you want to be ultimately. Second year is not as stressed in terms of projects and assignments as in the first year. At least that's what it was like when I was there. So that time should be well utilized to make a killing or get some more knowledge about that industry that you selected, get some dream companies that you can think of, develop additional skill sets which may not be part of the syllabus. For example, if somebody is actually wanting to get into sales and marketing and they have narrowed down on, say, pharmaceuticals, and they are not a B.Pharm graduate, so why not pick up some domain knowledge on the industry at large, even do a professional part-time course along with your MBA, which can be done in a spare hours, if whatever, so that when you get out into the market or into the interviewing stage, you are well set as to where you want to be. You also have the necessary skill sets to back you up.
Right. And you will talk the language.
Yes, and when interviewers interview you, they are not seeing you as a rookie who doesn't know anything, will have to be taught the ropes right from the word go. They see you as someone who's already one rung above the rest. So that gives you a much better chance of getting noticed and getting picked up in the final round.
True. I think that's a very important piece of information. So once you figure out where you want to be, you should add on to that skill set.
Yes.
And that would really help.
Well, only one thing comes to mind. When you said corner office, every office has only 4 corners. Out of those 2 corners will go into a canteen or whatever other things there are there. So actually there are only 2 corner offices available. So the market is pretty large. The candidates who will actually get into the corner office are very few. So there's a long road before you get to the corner office. Even if you are a high flyer, there will be a long waiting period before you get there. So if you expect that you'll work for 2-3 years, put in all your heart, and then get to where you want to be, no, that's not the case. Things they take their own time. There is also someone called Lady Luck who is looking at you from afar. All the hard work and Lady Luck put together will ultimately lead you to where you want to go. And ultimately it might be that you do not get the corner office in the company that you work for. You might have to make a few switches along the way or be at the right time in the right place, to ultimately get to there. So instead of aspiring for a corner office, what I would rather say is expand laterally, get more knowledge off the ground from your colleagues, try to get as many roles at the same level as you can before you actually move vertically upwards, because that will make your chances of getting that corner office much better than anything else that you can ever do.
Right. You mentioned an interesting term which is the lady luck.
Yes.
So when you say lady luck, you mean the mother, you mean the girlfriend, the wife, or who?
No, I just mean Lady Luck as a pseudonym, that's all.
Okay, great. Interesting. So how big do you think is the insurance industry in India?
Well, I talk about the general insurance industry since that's where I'm working right now. Last year, the industry closed at about 98,000 crores of GDPI, which is gross domestic premium income. And having said that, the insurance industry is vastly underinsured. While in general insurance, there are a lot of policies which are mandatory. Like motor insurance is mandatory. You mandatorily need to have your office or your factory insured. But there are a lot of other retail lines. For example, health insurance. How many of us actually do have health insurance? While the general public is waking up to the need for health and term insurance from the life side. But there are still a large number of people who, while might want it, have really not got down to it.
Right.
and there might be a larger section who really don't know about it, especially in rural India. So those are the trends which actually are in the general insurance industry, which are the key takeaways for anybody who's actually looking at it from afar and wondering what this market is all about.
Right.
The dynamics of the industry are very different from a life insurance space even,
Right.
because there are a lot of product lines which each cater to different segments of business, and some companies are better in one or two, some others are better in the third or fourth. So the market is pretty well spread out with about 27, 28 companies in the market.
Wow. That's a big industry per se.
Yes, it is.
Absolutely. Now, what do you think are the key challenges of the insurance industry?
Well, the main challenge here would again be the problem of the market being underinsured or not insured.
Right.
So the government is coming out with a lot of schemes where they are, for example, in rural insurance, they are coming out with a lot of schemes at state level where all farmers, for example, will get covered at a nominal premium charge. That's one. Their livestock or cattle will get insured with another premium, nominal premium. That's one segment. So rural insurance is one. Secondly, intermediaries or the people who actually sell insurance or the sales channels, which are not the employees of the company, largely do it as a part-time business. So whenever you do something part-time, your full investment in terms of time, commitment, energies may not be fully invested into the matter.
True.
So insurance companies are always on their tiptoes as to when this intermediary might just slip out and go to another company who's offering a better deal to them in terms of commission payout.
Right.
So basically having a stable frontline sales force. That's the second challenge. Third is the diversity of needs that a customer has today, and how easily or how difficult is it for the customer to for the company to actually gauge that and provide a product or basket of products which is suited to each and every need. So that, it's to my mind, are the three premier challenges that the insurance industry faces today. Well, as far as the cons goes, I'll use an adage: once an insurance person, always an insurance person, unless your role is industry agnostic. So suppose you get into an insurance company in a certain role, and you spend a few years, say 5 or 6 years, you'll find it very difficult to actually break out. The most logical scenarios where you could go to next would be a bank or a financial service industry, but that too, your role should have been such that it applies to them as well.
Right.
So that is one of the biggest cons I see. That is if for people who are looking to move industry,
Change the industry.
change industries, are the kind who do not want to get stuck into one industry.
Right.
As far as pros goes, as I said when I started out, it was a sunrise industry for India with privatization and liberalization happening. A large chunk of India is uninsured, so there's a huge market potential for this industry at large.
Right.
Due to this, there are a lot of challenges that can be overcome by each company getting into the market and actually achieving something in denting this huge underinsured population.
Right.
So for all those who are involved, especially those who are in the sales and distribution teams, for them it's a big pro to be in an industry which is fast growing on that strand. And I know a lot of people who joined insurance as low as a executive level in 2001 or 2, and today are already heading companies. Now that itself is saying a lot. I know a person who has become a CEO also.
Right.
So having said that, that's the pros that one can see of the insurance industry.
Right.
And plus it is a dynamic industry, there's a lot of learning to be done, and people from the insurance field are today respected in every sphere of life.
Absolutely.
So
I agree with you on that one. So there's still, the industry is still growing. It has a huge potential to grow to, and definitely big career opportunities.
Yes.
And with privatization, like you mentioned, new entrants coming in.
All the time, yeah.
Definitely a huge potential for long sustainability.
Yes.
Absolutely. Now, what traits or skills or experiences do employers in your field look for in candidates? What is an ideal kind of candidate one would hire?
I suppose you're talking about freshers.
Absolutely, yes.
So one would be obviously the most practical aspects of being logical, because insurance is a very logical and process driven business.
True.
Someone who understands the insurance buying or selling process will have it much easier than someone who comes in fresh without any knowledge about it at all, and not even being a logical person who has to think through each thing 100 times before they actually get through. They'll find it much more difficult. Other than that, as I was mentioning in one of my earlier answers, the person has to have some kind of skill set or domain knowledge of insurance to begin with, as to what is the basic principles of insurance. If the person doesn't even understand what the insurance is at a very basic level, it's very difficult to teach that person, because we are talking about someone who's a 23 or 24-year-old here and who's gone through life without knowing what insurance is. And I have come across such people also. That when you ask them what is insurance, I've really been clear and said that be very basic. I don't want you to give me a textbook answer. They have still not been able to do that. So that is one skill set that I would look for. Secondly, if you are hiring someone for the front line, obviously that person needs to be street smart as well. They need to be able to know how to meet their numbers. They need to know how to meet their numbers and be profitable about it. Because while it's all easy to go out there and say I want to maximize my premium, there are a lot of things that go into getting that premium on the ground. So those are the basic qualities that I would look for. Other than that, obviously enthusiasm towards your towards whatever you are getting into. Integrity is another basic principle that I would look for, because that is one of the basic tenets of insurance. Insurance works on good faith, and if the person who's selling insurance to you is not really the kind of person trustworthy, so there will be a problem there. There will be a big mismatch. What generally happens is most insurance companies visit MBA colleges. They look for the skill sets that I just mentioned. After the shortlisting happens, they attach these newly recruited candidates, or I would call them management trainees, to a particular product line. And that candidate would then get an exposure to that product line through the cycle. They would then be moved to another product line, and finally they would be attached to one which seems to suit their own skill sets the best. So as far as challenges goes, there aren't any challenges now, because we also have MBAs which pertain specifically to insurance. Yes, especially at the bottom level of the sales force, you tend to see a lot of attrition. That is more to do with different paying fields, as in the range of pay that each company offers might be different. Also, as I said, there are a lot of companies in the market already, and there are newer entrants coming in, and they're always on the lookout for people who already have been through the grind and do not have to really come up the curve. So it's easy picking grounds for newer companies to get established people from established players, because the processes generally remain the same. It is just the brand name which changes.
And the products are also somewhat similar.
So without mentioning a number, attrition is a problem at front line, but as you go up the curve, the number obviously reduces drastically.
Now, an interesting question here. When faced with two equally qualified candidates, how would you determine whom to hire?
Well, it's all pertinent to that time and that place. As to it's a very subjective question, because it would depend on for the want of a better word, I'd say vibe I get from the candidate at point in time, positivity towards the role, or a clear understanding of what the role offers, and then making a choice, informed choice from the candidate side, would put me in a position to make a better choice. If there are two equally qualified candidates, both who have interviewed well, but one seems to be more interested, the other seems to be, I'm here, so might as well do it. That kind of attitude, I would go with the first one, who's the more interested one, and give the second person a chance to get something that he's actually looking out for, or good at, or has the aptitude for, or is really interested in. Because ultimately, once you join, it's very difficult to immediately break out and get into something of your choice.
I mean, you can always work on skills, but you can't work on attitude and behavior.
Exactly.
Interesting. So what do you think from the student perspective, or the ones who are looking at getting hired? What should they bring to the table, to get hired in good companies?
It all boils down to the same thing. One is attitude. Second is your academics. Academics do play a role ultimately, because while you might push them to the side burner, saying that it all boils down to what I do and what my own thoughts are, academics do play a role. So obviously I will rate someone who's got better academics higher than someone who doesn't. The third thing is what extra have you done to appear for this particular interview? What extra knowledge have you gained? Maybe just before the interview, or even over time, as I was saying, getting additional skill sets. What extra have you brought to the table? in terms of domain knowledge, skill sets. I am appearing for a role in business analytics, but I don't know any of the softwares. I don't know any tools. I'll pick them on the job, which means, boss, you didn't really do your homework. You knew you wanted to get into this role, but you haven't utilized your student time to actually pick up a tool which you might use in your job. So that will kind of put me off. First thing I would think is, now the market is filled with a lot of players.
Right.
The early movers or the early movers and shakers will obviously have a much firmer footprint in the market.
Right.
They have also consolidated their business. They've reduced the number of branches and made their structures leaner, because all those who went out with hammer and tongs in 2000 and opened 200 branches have now decided that it's time to consolidate, bring the number of branches down to a manageable level, which are giving profitable business, and get out of markets which are not.
Right.
So that is one change which will continue to happen.
So consolidation is one big point.
That is one. Consolidation will happen within the company. Second will be, I see a lot of mergers and takeovers happening, because the number of players in the market are too many right now, and all of them may not be able to actually do justice to the market.
Right.
So while all of them have equal opportunity, the first movers will obviously have a stronger footprint always.
So there will also be an inorganic growth in the industry.
Yes. Other than that, in 5 years, you will find many more products in the market which will be much more suited to the end customer.
Right.
The customer will have a say, and he will be able to pick and choose products which are not directly off the rack. He'll have customized products available to him.
Right.
And we will also pick up on some international trends in terms of products that are being offered abroad.
Right.
As to small business products, might have something customized for, say, anything, a painting gallery, art gallery, might have a product which is customized for just them.
Absolutely.
So something of that kind, some niche products which will be much more prevalent than they are today.
Right. So I think so. The insurance products will become more customer oriented rather than business oriented.
Yes. Anyway, insurance does, as a motto, customer is the king for them anyway.
Right.
But the segmentation will happen much more deeply. You will cut through a lot more segments. You will divide your customer base into much more manageable and more focused segments.
Which will also open up a lot of opportunities.
Yes, because you will have more lines of products opening up. So when I talk to you, I'll know exactly what to offer you, rather than giving you a broad base of Mediclaim or
the generic ones.
Will go out of the picture. You will be much more specific and customized to your requirement.
Right. That will be a sure win, I'm sure.
Yes.
What role will technology continue to play in the growth of the industry?
Well, insurance, especially general insurance, has been a little slow on the uptake as far as technology goes. So, technology, most companies are now waking up to the fact. In fact, the newer companies now are coming into the market with a firm foothold in terms of their IT roadmap.
Right.
As to what kind of data they are capturing. Is it being captured correctly? Is it being used? Are we using technology effectively to make the most of this data?
Right.
Now, when we talk about analytics, a lot of it is based on the kind of data you capture and the kind of technology you use, to use the data. Right. So currently what will happen now is companies will get into it in a bigger way. They will tie up with all the technology companies who are specific to insurance in a bigger way. Many of them might have their own homegrown, analytics software which will give them outputs on a monthly basis or a regularized basis.
Right.
And the pace at which technology is advancing, where you have things like the cloud technologies that are coming out, big data, Hadoop, and all of these, they'll get used much more effectively. Currently, we hear about these names, but we really don't know what they mean. Right. That's one. Secondly, they are not really used to their fullest potential.
Right, absolutely. So when we talk of technology being used at the frontline level, will there be a change in that?
Well, Salesforce automation is one thing that immediately comes to mind when we talk about technology at the front end level.
Right.
Now, what happens is the sales guy generally has a premium target or a rupee target.
Right.
So they all go out in the market trying to get hold of that elusive 100 crore or 10 crore number or whatever their target might be.
Right.
So what will happen then is, since you're so focused on the end result, you forget all the basic things that you need to do. Recruit an agent, develop the agent, make sure that the agent comes to the branch at least once a week, maybe puts in one policy a week or one policy a month. To be able to start focusing on those basic inputs, he needs to move his eye away from his end target, which is the GPW, because if he does all these things right, GPW will anyway come.
Right. Sure.
To enable him to do all that, we need automation of his input mechanism. Suppose he made 10 calls in the day. Today he has to actually write it in a diary.
Right.
Why not have a system which anyway is happening in some places, where he keys it in directly onto the system. The system does all the mapping and actually develops the funnel which tells the supervisor that your team has logged in so many calls with so many dropouts along the way, and this is what it finally translated into. And this particular set of agents has done this much business. Now this means that the sales guy can focus on his core, which is developing and recruiting agents, and he can forget about the rest of it. So Salesforce automation is the thing or the way to look forward to in the near future.
So now, Mr. Shanbag, we'd like to take you away from the insurance industry and your schooling years. We'd like to talk about Sachin Shanbag as a person, right? So what is the first thing you do the moment you enter your office?
Check my email.
Check your emails, okay. What is the one thing you like the most and least about your job?
Well, sometimes it does tend to get monotonous because ultimately it is data. So when you are so deeply wound up into the same kind of data fields and structures and databases day in and day out, using the same, you kind of forget to look at the larger picture.
Right.
So when you do that, what happens is you end up either making an error or passing up something which is right there in front of you, but you might just have skipped it because you're so entrenched in that on a day-to-day basis. You skip the larger picture, you can't see detail. Somebody else from the outside will have to tell you, boss, you missed this.
You're missing this out, yeah.
As far as what I like about it, I like the dynamism that it brings to my work. I mean, these are two actually very opposite things that I'm talking about. I'm talking about dynamism at one end and monotony at the other. But the dynamism comes from the changes that the business strategy offers on a month-to-month basis. Tactical initiatives change or tactical focus changes. So due to that, the requirement that I've been given also changes. And to cater to each one of these requirements, I need to throw in a fresh outlook. I need to meet some more people. I need to use their or pick their brains to give me a better hypothesis to test for my data. So that's what. So dynamism on one hand, or rather the dynamism of the job on one hand, and the monotony on the other. Well, I was paid a princely sum of 12,500 per month.
Okay.
So coming from an MBA school, it was a bit of a setback at that point in time because we had a lot of people who drew more on the first job. But due to my job being the way it was, and it was a .com company, I got a lot to learn. So I took that in my stride, and it served me well in the future.
Right. So that thing should not really matter.
It should not. I was trying to drive to that's just a number, and anyway, those are the years when you actually might not need that kind of money. It's more
what you
like
need is the experience, the hard dirt in your hands.
Yes, and anyway, those kind of sums are no longer paid to MBAs. So
MBAs, absolutely true. What is your strength and weakness in all these years? What has been your biggest strength and weakness?
My strength has been my ability to be able to diffuse a tense situation by, I'm a soft person per se. I am not abrasive. I am not someone who will just go and fight with someone just because I want to. I will try to take things in my stride. I will try to resolve it amicably.
Right.
And while that has nothing to do with my role, it has stood me in good stead throughout my career. I've always been thought of as a person who can, a go-to person. I mean, if you go to Sachin, he'll be able to resolve it without friction.
Right. So you're the go-to man.
Yes.
What would be your weakness?
Well, the weakness also stems from the same thing. I've never been able to say no to anybody for most of the time, and that leads to a lot of unpleasant situations where I'm handling too many things on my plate.
Right.
So that has been the weakness.
I think that's an important piece for us here. Is you also should learn to say no at the right
yes,
time.
And some of things are doable. I mean, it's part of my character or of my personality that I can't say no.
What makes you happy?
Good food, good books.
Okay. So any particular cuisine you like?
Well, I'm a big fan of Chinese cuisine. Or rather now, to broaden it, Asian cuisine.
Asian cuisine, true. And any favorite book that you like?
Fantasy fiction. So Lord of the Rings is my all-time favorite book.
Sorry?
The Lord of the Rings.
The Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
It's a favorite of many.
Yeah, I hope so.
Describe Sachin in one word.
Committed.
Committed. Okay. Your favorite destination?
Goa.
Goa. Interesting.
I have not been Well, I've not been abroad a lot, so I really wouldn't want to name some destination abroad.
Right.
But Goa is a place I want to go at least once a year.
Once a year. Okay. So do you manage to go once a year?
Most years.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting. If not the professional career, where would you have been?
If I was able to provide for my family, I would have loved to be a writer.
A writer?
Yes.
Okay, so you have that creative bent of mind to do that.
Well, I blog occasionally,
Okay.
and it is my dream to write a book someday. It will be fiction, obviously. It won't be anything to do with work, but
Right.
yeah, write a book someday.
Okay. One love.
Other than my family,
Uh-huh.
well, books again.
Okay. So books and writing is your great. So now, Mr. Sachin, we'd like to we'd like to know you as a person at different stages of your life. The kind of person that you were. So, what was Sachin like when he was 18?
At 18, he was this person who didn't have a clue as to where he wanted to be.
Okay.
He was just getting into graduate college,
Okay.
and he was taking up BSc statistics because he didn't really have anything else to do.
Right. Okay. And at 25?
At 25, I was just married, so looking forward to a new life,
Right.
and obviously growing in my career because that was the time when my career actually catapulted.
Okay. So, lady luck is what you're talking about.
Exactly. Yes, this is the lady luck.
This is the lady luck. Okay. And Sachin at 30?
Just about to become a father.
Oh.
So I'm linking it back to my family at most places. So
Right.
just about to become a father, enter a new stage of life.
Right. Congratulations on that.
Thanks. I've got two now, so
Oh, okay.
it's been a while.
Interesting. Any message that you have for the young professionals at Wellinger who are currently studying and are going to pass out? Any message that you would have?
Well, my message is simple. First of all, just be yourself. Whenever you appear for an interview, don't put on what you are not. Because interviewers normally see through that, and
Right.
if you are seen through for who you are right at the start of an interview, that interview is definitely a write-off.
Right.
So be yourself, one.
Right.
Do not throw about jargon. People have all been through that stage where
True.
they have learnt about jargon. They do not need it thrown back at them.
Right.
Rather, what you would be best should be doing at that point in time would be to showcase your knowledge and showcase your ability or attitude to want to achieve your goals as to whatever goals might be given to you.
Right.
Your ability to meet that. Leaving apart the interview, I would also advise them to be solution oriented in their approach. Many people have the habit of throwing problems at you when you go to them with something.
Yeah.
Rather than that, if you have a problem, also have a solution ready made. It might not be the right solution, but it just shows that you've actually put in the effort to think about what the solution could be.
Right. And I think if you build on that habit, your career will take a different course.
That's right, because if people understand that you are the person who can get into solution mode instantly without even being negative about it,
Right.
they will come to you more and more, and they will come to you with a good heart, as in they are not looking to get things done by you and push you aside.
Right.
They are actually coming to you कि ये कर सकता है, let me relapse into vernacular, ये कर सकता है तो इसके पास चलते हैं, ये करके देगा, and then we'll move ahead, and they take you along with them.
True.
And this I'm talking about senior people coming to you.
Right.
So that's my clear message. I'm not even going to get into the nitty-gritties of what you did in your course. Forget that. We all have done it. We've all passed. That's why we are here. But yeah, be yourself, be true, don't throw out jargon, and be solution oriented.
Solution.